"Take this ring, it will pay for your stay throughout here," Stella said, as she gave out her wedding ring to a homeless man that was thrown out of a hotel. "How can I pay you back?" Frank said as he was surprised at such a kind gesture. "I promise to pay you back no matter how long it takes," Frank said as he was looking at the diamond ring. Stella was a young and beautiful woman, but her life had never been easy. She came from a poor family. Her father was a drug addict, so they always had no money, and they were constantly in debt. One day, Stella's father made a decision that would change her life forever. He forced her to marry a rich young man named Mr. Patrick, who was a billionaire. But Stella wasn't marrying him because she loved him. Her father made her marry Mr. Patrick to pay off their debts. Her father thought that marrying a rich man would solve their problems and keep him funded for his addiction. Stella's life with Mr. Patrick was full of pain and sadness. Mr. Patrick treated her terribly. He often insulted her, made her feel worthless, and reminded her that he saved her from a life of poverty. "Don't forget, I picked you from the gutters and cleaned you up. I paid your family's debts, and without me, your family can't survive," he would say to her. Stella didn't want this life. She was miserable. She hated the way Mr. Patrick treated her and the way she was forced to live. She often thought to herself, "Why did my father choose wealth over my happiness? Why did he do this to me?" It made her regret marrying Mr. Patrick. One day, after another fight, Stella couldn't take it anymore. She cried as she told her husband, I regret this marriage. I need a divorce now. I can't live like this anymore." With tears streaming down her face, Stella ran away from the mansion. She couldn't bear to stay in the house any longer. She needed to be free, to live her life away from Mr. Patrick's control and abuse. While walking on the street, Stella saw something that made her stop. A hotel security guard was throwing a man out of the hotel. The man looked homeless and he was being treated badly. Stella felt sorry for him. As she watched the man being thrown out, she thought about her wedding ring, the diamond ring that she wore as a symbol of her painful marriage. It wasn't just a ring, it represented everything she had suffered. In that moment, she decided to help the man. She walked closer to him and took off her ring. She didn't know why, but she felt like the ring could help the man in some way. She handed the ring to the homeless man and said, "Take this ring. It will pay for your stay here for as long as you need." The man, named Frank, was shocked. He couldn't believe what was happening. "How can I pay you back?" Frank asked, his voice filled with confusion and surprise. Stella looked at him with kindness and said, "Don't worry about paying me back. I promise I won't forget you, no matter how long it takes." Frank took the ring, and he was so surprised by Stella's kindness. He didn't know how to react, but he knew he had to take action to change his life. Frank walked straight to the bank, holding the diamond ring tightly in his hand. When he reached the bank, he went up to the manager and said, I want to get a loan with this ring." He took the ring out of his pocket and showed it to the manager. The manager looked at the ring closely and said, "This must be a diamond." "Yes, it is," Frank replied confidently. The manager raised an eyebrow and asked, "Do you mind if I test it?" "Yeah, sure, go ahead," Frank said, not worried at all. The manager called for a diamond tester, and soon a staff member brought one over. The tester was used on the ring, and the staff member was amazed. "This is real," the tester said in shock. "How much do you need for a loan?" the manager asked Frank. "I need 100 grand, Frank replied. The manager nodded and said, "No problem. You'll just need to sign a few documents." Frank signed the papers and left the bank with $100,000 in his hands. With that money, Frank decided to make some big investments. He worked hard, made smart decisions, and within a few years, he became the richest person in the city. His life had completely turned around. He had gone from being homeless to becoming a wealthy, successful man. After achieving his wealth, Frank started looking for Stella. He wanted to find her and thank her for giving him the ring that had changed his life. He eventually learned that she was running a restaurant. So Frank decided to visit the restaurant to see if it was really her. When Frank walked into the restaurant, he saw Stella working there. He approached her, but she didn't recognize him at all. Frank was surprised because he remembered her clearly. He had never forgotten her face even after all these years. But Stella didn't know who he was. So Frank came up with a plan. He decided to disguise himself and apply for a job at the restaurant. He started working as a dishwasher, which was a humble position, but he wanted to get close to Stella again. They became friends and started spending more time together. As time went on, their relationship grew and they became more and more comfortable with each other. They developed a close bond and became more intimate. One day, after a busy day of work, Stella seemed really sad. She was feeling down about her restaurant sales, and Frank could see that she was struggling emotionally. He wanted to help her feel better, so he decided to console her. "How are you doing?" Frank asked gently. Stella, looking exhausted, replied, "Can you please follow me home?" Frank was happy to help and said, "Sure, I'll come with you." They walked together to Stella's home. When they arrived, Frank woke up early the next morning to get breakfast for Stella. He went to a nearby restaurant, bought some food, and brought it back to her house to serve her breakfast in bed. It was his way of showing her that he cared. However, when Stella woke up, Frank was gone. She thought he had left, and she felt confused. She had to leave for a banquet, but what she didn't know was that the banquet she was going to was actually Frank's company's event. Frank had been hiding his true identity from her. When Stella left for the banquet, she didn't realize that Frank was back at the house. He quickly changed into a suit and went to the event. When he arrived at the banquet, he was announced as the CEO of his company, and Stella was completely shocked when she saw him. Frank saw Stella across the room, and he couldn't help but run toward her. "So, you're wealthy?" Stella asked, her voice filled with surprise and confusion. She couldn't believe it. She had no idea that Frank was the rich man she had helped all those years ago. Frank smiled at Stella, who was still in shock, staring at him in disbelief. "Yes, it's me," he said gently, watching the confusion slowly turn into a mix of surprise and curiosity on her face. "You didn't recognize me, did you?" Stella shook her head, still not believing what she was hearing. "How could I? You were a dishwasher at my restaurant," she said, her voice a bit shaky. "But you're the CEO of this company." Frank nodded. "Yes, I didn't want to tell you right away. I wanted to get to know you as a person first, without you judging me based on my wealth." He looked at her, his expression soft but sincere. "The truth is, I wanted to thank you for everything you did for me that day you gave me that ring. If you hadn't done that, I don't know where I would be today. Your kindness changed my life." Stella couldn't find the right words. She was still processing everything. The man she had helped all those years ago, the man she had thought was just a homeless person, was now rich and successful. She didn't know how to react, and it felt like everything was spinning out of control. "You don't have to thank me, Frank," Stella finally said, shaking her head. "I was just trying to help. You didn't owe me anything." "I know," Frank replied, his voice calm. "But I owe you everything. That ring. It was the key that opened a door to a new life for me. I took the loan, invested, worked hard, and now here I am." He paused for a moment, looking around the room. "I never forgot what you did for me, Stella. I want you to know that." Stella still couldn't quite wrap her mind around it. She had given him the ring out of kindness, without expecting anything in return. But here he was, standing in front of her, a successful businessman. It felt like something out of a dream. "Frank, this is all so unreal," she said, finally finding her voice. "I had no idea you were the one who turned everything around. I never thought I'd see you again, let alone like this. I don't know what to say." Frank smiled again, that familiar warmth in his eyes. "You don't have to say anything, Stella. I just wanted to tell you that I appreciate you, and I also wanted to ask you something." Stella raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's that?" "Would you like to have dinner with me?" Frank asked, his tone gentle. "I know it might sound strange, but I've been thinking about you a lot. I want to spend time with you. I want to get to know the person behind that beautiful, kind heart." Stella was taken aback. She didn't know what to think. All these years she had been living in a world where she had to fight for happiness. She was stuck in a marriage that drained her, surrounded by people who only cared about money and status. And now here was Frank, someone who had come from nothing, someone who had worked hard and turned his life around. "Why me?" Stella asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Why would you want to have dinner with me after all these years?" Frank looked at her with understanding, his eyes soft and genuine. "Because you were the only person who ever showed me kindness when I had nothing. You didn't care about my past or my situation. You just saw a person who needed help, and that meant everything to me." Stella felt a wave of emotions rush over her. It was hard for her to trust anyone after everything she had been through. She had always believed that people only cared about their own interests, and she had never expected someone to be so honest with her. "Okay," Stella said softly after a moment of hesitation. "I'll have dinner with you." Frank's face lit up with a smile that made Stella's heart skip a beat. "Great," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "I'll make it special. I promise you. It'll be a night you'll never forget." That evening, Frank and Stella went to a quiet, elegant restaurant. As they sat down, Stella couldn't help but feel a little nervous. The place was beautiful, and Frank seemed so comfortable in this world of wealth and luxury. But Stella was different. She wasn't used to this kind of lifestyle. She had spent so many years struggling just to get by that it felt strange to be in a place like this. But Frank was kind and easy to talk to. As they ate, they spoke about everything, about their past, their struggles, and their dreams. Stella found herself opening up to him in ways she hadn't done with anyone in a long time. She felt safe with him, like she could trust him completely. "I never really had a chance to live the life I wanted," Stella admitted, her voice soft. "I was always told what to do. My father decided who I should marry. I didn't have a say in anything. I spent so many years just trying to survive." Frank listened intently, his eyes filled with understanding. "I know how it feels to have your life controlled by others," he said quietly. "But you're free now, Stella. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to live for anyone else anymore." Stella looked at him, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I've been thinking about that," she said, her voice thoughtful. "I want to live for myself now. I want to build my own future without anyone telling me what to do. I want to be happy." "You deserve to be happy," Frank said, his voice firm. "You've been through so much, but you're still standing. And that's something to be proud of." For the first time in a long time, Stella felt a sense of hope. She realized that her life could be different. And she didn't have to stay stuck in the past or live in the shadow of her mistakes. She had the power to change her future. The evening passed quickly, filled with laughter and conversation. It felt like they had known each other for years, even though they had just reconnected. For Stella, this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life. After dinner, Frank walked Stella back to her restaurant. As they reached the door, he turned to her with a smile. "I know this might sound crazy," he said, "but would you consider working with me? I know you're doing well with your restaurant, but I think we could do something great together." Stella was taken aback by his offer. She had never expected anything like this. "What do you mean?" she asked, genuinely curious. "I've been thinking about opening up a chain of restaurants," Frank explained. "I want to create a space that feels like home, a place where people can come together and enjoy good food and good company. And I want you to be a part of it. Your heart, your kindness. It's exactly what I need to make this vision a reality." Stella was quiet for a moment, processing his words. She had always dreamed of doing something big, something meaningful. She had never imagined that Frank would be the person to offer her that opportunity, but here he was, offering her a chance to build something from the ground up. "Let me think about it," she said, her voice thoughtful. "This is a big decision, but I'll consider it." Frank smiled. Take your time. There's no rush. I just wanted you to know that the door is open if you want to walk through it. Stella nodded, her heart filled with gratitude. Thank you, Frank, she said sincerely. Thank you for everything. As she watched him walk away, Stella realized that her life was changing in ways she never thought possible. She had been through so much pain, but now, with Frank's help, she had a chance to build a future that was her own. She wasn't sure where this new path would lead, but she knew one thing for sure: she was ready to take the first step. The days passed quickly for Stella as she tried to get used to the idea of the changes happening in her life. She thought about everything Frank had said to her and the opportunity he had given her. For so many years, she had been stuck in a life that wasn't her own. Now she had the chance to live for herself and to make something meaningful out of her life. But it wasn't going to be easy. She knew that taking this leap of faith meant she would have to face her fears and leave behind the past that had held her back. Stella spent more time reflecting on her life and what she truly wanted. She remembered the pain of being controlled by her father and her husband, Mr. Patrick, and how she had always felt powerless. But now, for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of control. She could make her own decisions. She could create a life for herself, without anyone telling her what to do. One evening, after thinking about it for a while, Stella made her decision. She called Frank. "I've thought about your offer," she said, her voice calm but determined. "And I want to take the chance. I want to work with you. I want to help you build something meaningful." Frank was overjoyed when he heard her voice. "Stella, I'm so happy to hear that. I knew you were the right person for this. Together, we can make something amazing." And just like that, Stella stepped into a new chapter of her life. She joined Frank in his business venture, and they worked together to open new restaurants that became popular in the city. They created a welcoming atmosphere, a place where people could feel at home and enjoy good food with great company. Stella's kindness and warmth were the perfect addition to Frank's vision, and together they made their dreams come true. But their success wasn't just about the money. It was about the lives they touched. Every person who walked into their restaurants was treated with care and respect. Stella made sure that every guest felt like they belonged, and Frank helped create a business that could grow and provide opportunities for others. As the years went by, their business flourished. They expanded their restaurant chain, and people came from all over to experience the food and the atmosphere they had created together. Stella became a role model for many, showing others that it was never too late to change your life, no matter how difficult your past may have been. Frank, too, became a symbol of hard work, determination, and the power of second chances. But even with all the success, Stella never forgot the lesson she had learned from her own struggles. She remembered the kindness she had shown to Frank and how that one act of compassion had changed everything. It wasn't the money or the fame that mattered most to her. It was the relationships she built and the impact she had on the people around her. One day, after a successful dinner service at one of their new restaurants, Stella stood outside and looked at the bright lights of the city. The restaurant was buzzing with energy, and the sounds of happy customers filled the air. She smiled to herself, feeling proud of how far she had come. She had made it through the darkest times of her life, and now she was living her dream. Frank came up behind her, his smile warm and genuine. "You did it, Stella," he said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We did it." Stella nodded, her heart full of gratitude. "Yes, we did. But it's more than just about the success. It's about the people we've helped along the way. That's what matters the most." Frank looked at her, understanding exactly what she meant. "You're right," he said softly. "It's about making a difference in the world, and I couldn't have done it without you." Stella smiled, feeling the weight of the past finally lift off her shoulders. "I couldn't have done it without you either, Frank." They both stood there for a moment, looking out at the city that had witnessed their journey from hardship to success. They had come a long way, but they knew that this was only the beginning. Together they were building something much bigger than just a restaurant business. They were creating a legacy built on kindness, hard work, and the belief that anyone could change their life if they were willing to take that first step.
Please do well to subscribe, like, comment, and share our channel for more interesting stories like this.